statistics on this, Phil. Levitated by the human touch.
Here's the pass. Antonio's through. Johnson for what a goal! What a brilliant strike by Michail Antonio!
Hello, and welcome to another edition of the Knees Up Mother Brown podcast. That's welcome to everyone except for John McGinn, who can off as far as I'm concerned. Gentlemen, how are we this evening? Jack and Callum, good to see you.
Great, thank you, Chris.
Yeah, good to see you, bro. Yeah, I'm doing good.
It's lovely to have you back in your own home, Jack, considering the travails of the weekend, which has otherwise been an excellent few games since we were last recording. Some of us may have been pessimistic. Some of us had the faith to even win both of these games. And, you know, I'll put the draw aside and say that you were correct, I suppose. Well, might as well crack straight on with Aston Villa. A 4-1 away win. It's hard to be anything but delighted with that, Jack.
Yeah, I think obviously really, really pleased. There were some issues with the performance after the red card, but other than that, we're really, really fantastic in the final third. The players that have come through the academy, Rice and Johnson, were absolutely brilliant, and that's the real story of the game. Is two youngsters absolutely dominating a Premier League game away from home. Yeah, it was just a joyous experience as an away fan, despite all the palaver of getting there and getting back. It was great fun.
And I will ask you more about that in a bit, but we do kind of have to talk about, we have to start with Declan Rice and Ben Johnson. It's another exemplary performance from Dec, who can even pass sideways into the goal from 25 yards these days. He seems to be able to pass sideways in so many different ways now. It's incredible to behold, but it all started off with the continued development of Ben Johnson, and apparently he thanks Antonio for giving the idea to cut onto his left foot. But that was a bit of a rocket into the corner, Cal.
Yeah, man. It was. It was a weird one because it didn't really look like it was that. It was a bizarre shot, wasn't it? It almost kind of like rolled towards. It was more about placement than anything else, and it looked as though it shouldn't have gone in. I think when I first saw it, I was like, how has that found its way into the corner? Like, especially against a pretty top keeper in Martinez. But yeah, loved it. I was so happy for him. Like, going into the game, obviously there were already question marks about whether he would start or whether we should bring Sufal back in, and whether it would be a bit harsh to drop him after the performances he's had in the last few games. And I think if Sufal had started, a lot of people probably wouldn't have argued that much about it, because ultimately he has also been amazing for us and is an integral part of the team when fully fit. But I'm chuffed for Johnson. Like, obviously Moyes must really see something in him, because he did have maybe not fully fit, but he did have Sufal available to him, and he's opted to go for Johnson, and it's paid off. It's paid wonders. And not just, it's easy when players like that, it's easy to praise them when they score, but it wasn't just about the goal. Like, his defensive performance was brilliant, I think. And yeah, just you can't be much happier for him. And that celebration, I think, was just brilliant as well. And I saw a moment, I think it was like a lifelong friend or something was in the crowd, and he sort of managed to get him over and have a hug. And it's just that sort of stuff, isn't it, that's really brilliant about this team at the minute. Just everyone seems to be so happy, and it makes a change from many seasons of doom and gloom.
It is. I mean, there's an absolute camaraderie, and it shines through as well. I mean, the smiles on Dec and Ben's faces when they did their interviews at the end of the game were quite ridiculous. They were giggly schoolboys, I mean, throughout most of that. But even when they scored, you could see that there was a genuine delight. Everyone ran over for that celebration. Fab. I mean, they were delighted for each other. They are playing with a happiness that it makes it a really lovable club as well. And it's clearly, I mean, Moyes had the choice. He easily could have dropped Johnson. I think he easily would have been excused for dropping Johnson, Jack, and he stuck with the guy in form. And you'd have to say, probably can't drop Johnson now, can he?
No, I think Johnson's almost become undroppable. He's been absolutely brilliant since he came into the side. And you're right, it was just such a lovely moment. Everyone running over to celebrate with him. And there was that sort of celebration that came from the viral video of him when he was at secondary school doing the kind of old. Really silly dance. And it was just lovely to see everyone's joy for him. And it shows really, I think, how great he's been around the place, despite having to work so hard and be so patient for the opportunities he's had. And frankly, every time he's come in, he's done quite a good job, and then he's been dropped again because there's been someone with a bigger reputation available to come back from injury or come back from suspension. And actually, the one moment where I've been really concerned for him is if we can cast our minds all the way back to that preseason game against Bournemouth ages ago, where he got hooked after, I think, 30 minutes after an absolute nightmare of a display in which he looked lost on the ball, off the ball. He was flying into tackles and mistiming them completely. And it was a horrible moment to see an academy player pulled off in a friendly after 25, 30 minutes. Moyes was left with virtually no choice because it was going to get sent off and completely ruin the friendly. I mean, we rarely see cards in friendlies, but the ref was having to like talk to him for the amount of times he was just flying in completely late. And that was the only real moment in his development where I've been a little bit concerned, because he's had this diligence about him that he's been ready for his opportunities when they've come, and he's done really well. And then suddenly he was given this opportunity and he just looked lost with what to do with it. And yeah, to see him bounce back so brilliantly, and this period with him in the first team where he's been fantastic defensively. I mean, I don't think he hasn't been dribbled past yet. I think I'm right in saying, and I've watched all the games twice, 3 times. He's been defensively faultless. I mean, against Villa in the air as well. I mean, he hasn't been aerially tested so much yet. And Villa, I don't know whether that was something they'd noticed, that not many people had like played long balls down that side, and they seem to really pump long balls down that flank. And he dealt with it brilliantly. Really, really great in the air. Won all of his aerial duels, and then even times where it sort of dropped into a 50-50, he was sharp in the tackle and winning the ball back and securing possession a lot as well. One of the things I really like about him is a lot of the time when you see defenders win the ball in the tackle, their first thought is, let me just get it up the pitch, I'll hack it clear. He's very, very good at getting his head up and picking a pass into Souček, or picking a pass back into one of Ogbonna or Zuma, the one that's under less pressure. And that often allows us to set the tempo really nicely, rather than opening the game up into these kind of up and down things where we lose control. So yeah, across the board, excellent defensively. And then going forward is something we've had our doubts about. There have been moments where we've seen some things coming through. We talked about line breaking passes appearing this season a few times, and him needing to start to pick his moments a little better when he does those, when he doesn't do those. He starts to be getting his head around. He looks to be starting to get his head around that. And then today, yeah, we talked about, I think as well, about him developing his left foot from playing at left back, and then suddenly he understands, I don't just need to go right. I've got a great left foot. I'm going to cut in and take a shot, and he gets a goal from it. So, if he continues on the path he's currently on, he could turn into a really, really outstanding Premier League fullback.
I mean, I've always thought his defensive basics have looked really solid. And always when he first came in, he's come in fits and starts a lot more on the left actually than the right.
Yeah.
He thought his basics were there. He was doing that. And granted, it's hard for someone playing on the left if you are naturally right foot, even though his left foot is bloody good. It's hard to get kind of everything in tune, but he seems to be adding something new, or at least showing something new of his game every day. I mean, there was if not in the week, then the last week's game, where he suddenly just pinged one across the pitch, fully from flank to flank with his left foot.
Yeah,
better than most of our players have played with a better foot. It was a fantastic shot. So he's obviously getting confidence, probably coming from a relationship with Declan, who looks like he's really stepping into this captain's role with Ben Johnson in a way that Nobes would have done. That would have been Nobes' role. 100% is getting those youth players in and making sure they feel comfortable. And Decker's stood up on that as well, Callum, and he stood up kind of to everything so far. But I mean, yeah, yesterday he was phenomenal again.
Yeah, he was. It is becoming a bit of a broken record, isn't it? I think every time we record an episode, we're just going to be talking about how amazing he is. But honestly, I think it's so good that you actually can't. It would be negligent for us to record an episode and not mention it, because we're meant to be talking about good things about West Ham and picking out identifiable things, and it's every game it is him that stands out without fail. Like you say, his sort of role in leading this team now is really, really good to see. And I think it's for the academy en masse as well. It's the longer he's here, the better it is, because I think it's such like a role model kind of thing. Like, look up, this is what Deck managed to do, and like I could also be that guy if I put the shift in, and like there is a pathway to the first team. Johnson's now just proven it again. Like, if you're good enough and you work hard enough, there is a pathway into that team if you knuckle down and do everything to get there. And that's just great. After, prior to that, has been quite a barren spell for what is the Academy of Football. I don't really remember anyone coming through to this caliber for a long time, and it's great. And I think as well, like, I don't know, it's easy to get romantic and hopeful about Rice, and I think everyone, like we've mentioned before, probably is resigned to him going at some point. But the more I see him stepping into this role and really like embracing it and relishing in it, and like even when he celebrates with such passion. Like, he absolutely loves it here. And I think, if we have found our level, and if the level that everyone's been like, oh, he needs to leave to play at that level, it's like, well, actually, if he can see that we're building something around him that almost takes us to that level, then does he have to need? I don't know. Perhaps it's wishful thinking, but Moyes must be in his ear saying, you could be the leader in this team to play at that level. You are. We need you to get there, but you could be the star of this team literally for your whole career and keep us at that level, rather than perhaps leaving to go to a club like, I don't know, United or something, where, yeah, he'd be amazing, but he'd never be the biggest character there, because you're always going to have the Ronaldos or some sort of poster boy that's going to get all that limelight and airtime.
I read an excellent article by Martin Samuel, I think it was, in the week, that talked about how there's all this talk of him needing to go to a Man United to go to that next level, and to in his game to progress to that next level. And actually, is he going to receive better? Is he going to receive better coaching under Solskjaer and the setup at Man United than he is under David Moyes, Kevin Nolan, Paul Nevin? The answer is just absolute. It's a categorical no. So he's clearly progressing in the way that he needs to develop his game at West Ham. He's got the captain's role, and like Cal, like you say, like if we can find our level here with this team and build it around him, and we've also got young players coming through like Ben Johnson who can also hold their own at that level, then it starts to open the question mark of does he really need to leave? And then on the point of his performance against Villa, he did undoubtedly drop off a little bit after the red card, but we did as a team in that period of the game, and we struggled a little bit in that period. But in the first half, I think for me, there's been 3 outstanding 45-minute performances from Declan Rice that I can think of this season: against Everton in the first half, against Spurs, I think in the second half against Spurs, and then here in the first half against Villa. I was amazed at how brilliant he was again here. One of the things that we clearly targeted is they really struggled with central ball progression, and they really struggled when Jacob Ramsey went off injured. It was really unfortunate for them that he rolled his ankle early on, and they lost kind of this ability to play to both the left and the right for a ball progressor. But as soon as they lost that, it was really obvious that John McGinn's the only guy that's going to be able to turn and play a forward pass out of that midfield unit. And every time John McGinn got the ball, Declan Rice was 2 yards away or less. It was straight onto him each time. And he could not turn for 45 minutes. McGinn received the ball and had to pass back to a centre-back straight away. And it stopped Villa from doing anything in the first half.
The one time he got the ball was when he decided to pull all the way out to the right wing, and that's where the goal came from, wasn't it? And
yeah,
to some extent, that's probably because he could, well, I'm not getting any space playing in the middle because Declan is smothering me. So he's got out there, and it was a shame how it went. Yeah. I say, as the club, he can't do anything more as a club at the moment than us than make it a really happy place for Declan Rice, not only to improve his game, but also a happy place to enjoy his football. And he may or may not leave, but it looks to me, and it looks from the outside, that we're pretty much doing everything we can to go, here's why you stay.
Yeah.
Apart from offering him money.
Yeah, but there's only certain things we'll do with money.
One final point on Rice from me is that historically, when you think of players that have perhaps been too good for West Ham, there's often been that, oh well, they need to leave West Ham to get into the England team, and if that's obviously every footballer's dream is to play for their country, but he's already a very established midfielder for England, arguably one of the most important players in this England setup already at his young age. Yeah. So that's just that obstacle that we've often faced in terms of the big club bias and stuff like that is not apparent in this situation. So in that sense, it's not like he needs to leave to get into Southgate's plans, because I would imagine he's already one of the first names in the squad when he's picking it.
But also, what's going to be a huge step for this team and making sure that we can sustain this level is players like Jarrod Bowen getting into the England setup. Said Benrahma going off to AFCON in January and being in the first team for Algeria. These are the things that really need to happen, because
Pablo's played a Nation League final.
Exactly. Pablo Fornals has found his way into the Spain setup, but Zuma needs to get back into that French squad. Things like Ogbonna, who had a great season, not getting into the Italian squad. That culture needs to change. And it will be things like Bowen getting into the England squad that means that players will be looking at West Ham and saying, well, Pablo Fornals is playing on the left wing for Spain. Declan Rice is potentially, he could even end up being captain of England, let's be honest, the way he's going.
Oh, he will be.
Yeah, and if Jarrod Bowen's playing for England as well, Said Benrahma's starring for Algeria, who look like they're really onto something good at the moment, then there's something to really say, not only are West Ham competing at the top end of the Premier League, competing well in Europe and competing well in the domestic cups, but also there's not that big club bias around their players. Their players are also playing so well that they're getting picked for their international sides.
That is, because for a long time we felt like we were, especially with our domestic players, we were those domestic players that didn't get the pick for England. We had and not to be a little bit harsh, because Cresswell has some caps with the Cresswells and the Fredericks who were there if you needed, but people didn't want to see them. Nowadays we have players who get media attention.
Yeah.
And
I guess Nobes was the classic case, wasn't it? Like all throughout his career, there was talks of how he's not got in the England team. Like that, there was a definite. I can't remember which tournament it was, but there was one tournament where it really felt like he had missed out and had been overlooked. Really,
Euro 2016.
I think that was it. Yeah, he was playing really well for West Ham, and
Wilshere got picked despite being injured all year.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. And that sort of that just doesn't seem to, we're going away from that culture now, like you say. And I think, sustaining that would be really important. And I think Jarrod must be on the cusp, or at least garnering the attention of Southgate, you'd think. I think Rashane Thomas wrote an article about Southgate, like watching him or something, or being aware of him. So
he has to be nearly there. I mean, his performance against Villa was just...
It's just unfortunate that we've got such a wealth of talent in that sort of area of the pitch who might end up getting in ahead of him, I guess.
You think of Southgate's desire for that kind of someone, at least one player who can do a defensive shift, and you think, well, Chris Wilder was really good at pointing out on Match the Day 2 even this week about the runs they did back, and he's in the box and suddenly he's covering, and there's barely a better player in the league at getting back and making sure they've covered. Mm-hmm. I was going to move on. We would talk slightly about the chaos, and we talked slightly about the second half and the performance maybe being different. But if I'm going to talk chaos, and I do have to talk, Jack, about your experience trying to get to and from that game yesterday, because if chaos could not be a better word, I don't think, really, by the sounds of things.
Yesterday was great fun, but it was exhausting. It was exhausting. I woke up to tweets of trains not leaving from Euston, and I was on the last train out of Euston that would have got you there on time for the game. So I was looking at it thinking, I'll probably be all right. It'll probably all blow over by then. It's only 8:30 now. People are complaining now. I'm going in 5 hours time. Hopefully it'll be cleared up by then. And I went on the National Rail thing, and it came up and it said disruption only expected until 12 o'clock. So I just went about my day,
You naive young man. Yeah, you naive young man. The National Rail site's telling the truth.
Yeah. Blow over being the perfect term here as well, given the weather.
So anyway, I went down to Euston to get on my train. And as I arrived at Euston, noticed that the station was being basically evacuated of everyone inside it, with people shouting, all trains cancelled out of Euston. So then I had a bit of a scramble on my hands. So I went on Twitter, and one of the really lovely things about yesterday is going on Twitter in that period when all the trains were cancelled, and seeing all the West Ham fans on Twitter, people going and picking up lifts from other people driving past Euston intentionally to try and pick up people who are trying to get on a train. That kind of lovely sort of togetherness of let's just get to the game however we can. everyone sending different train routes that could possibly get you there on time. A lot of people went to Leicester, people went to Oxford and changed. I think some people even went all the way up to Northampton and changed. So everyone trying different routes to get in. And the route I picked, I literally ran all the way down to Marylebone from Euston, and hopped on a Chiltern Railways little rattler that stopped everywhere on the way up to Birmingham, and did really well. I mean, I don't know if anyone's been following Rashane Thomas's travails getting to away games, but there's often the chat about whether Rashane manages to get a seat. And I was very chuffed to have managed to get a seat on this little Chiltern Railways rattler, because there were a lot of West Ham fans trying to get up there, and just a lot of people trying to get up to Birmingham. And I did manage to I gambled. I looked at a train that looked most like it was being held. I went, that's probably the one going to Birmingham. Went and got on it, and 20 minutes later saw everyone just running down the platform to try and get on. So yeah, managed to get up there, got a cab over to the ground. I got into the ground about 20 minutes into the first half, so I missed the Ben Johnson goal. Saw the Ben Johnson goal on my phone in the back of a cab with two other West Ham fans who I'd travelled up with. And then after the game, ridiculous. Just that the euphoria of the celebrations at the end, and then everyone walking out and getting outside the ground and just looking around and going, well, that was great. Now, how the fuck do we get home? So we all ended up at Witton, the little train station in Aston, looking for trains back into Birmingham. And there was this like brilliant moment as we were all lined up on the ramp trying to get on these little trains back into Birmingham, and it just slowly started raining, sort of fine rain, and obviously the chant just goes up, Birmingham's a shithole, I want to go home. So just standing there waiting to get on a train back into Birmingham, managed to get back into Birmingham, and then at New Street all the trains then ended up being cancelled back into Euston again, so everyone got across to Moore Street. And then another sort of hilarious moment as we all lined up on platform 2 at Moore Street, and you've got platform 3 right next to you, and platform 1's across the tracks. So there's all the West Ham fans lined up on platform 2. There's all these barriers that have been placed out, which make you think the train's going to come into platform 2. We're all stood in the. It was really cold yesterday in like really, really, really cold, and we're all stood. It's sort of raining. It's freezing cold, shifting from foot to foot, talking about how cold it is. And all looking down the train lines, just waiting to see these sort of lights appear in the distance. And as they did, there's this murmur went up that the train's coming into the station. And then just as it looked like it was coming into platform 2, it just diverted on the last set of signals and went left onto platform 1 on the other side of the tracks, which led to this, I think the only time I've run faster in my life would have been Year 7 Sports Day, when I was really trying to prove myself at a boys' sports college. So I turned and sprinted down platform 3 with several hundred other West Ham fans, and a sort of crush ensued as we tried to get onto this little Chiltern Railways train back in, and managed to get on it and get home. But it was a total palaver. And if there's one thing that was lovely about it, is that level of madness in getting there really reminds you of what a fantastic away support we have, that it would have been very easy for everyone when Euston got closed to just go, right, that's it, we're not getting there. But cabs, trains all around the country, little cross-country trains back from other stations to get there. I know we weren't all in at minute 1, but by minute 20, we'd all managed to sort of filter in, and I think you heard us in the second half on Sky pretty loud for the whole second half. It was a fantastic atmosphere up there.
So there's the kind of poetic and quite British away fans thing that doesn't really feel like a lot of other countries have. There's a culture of, I suppose, a culture of misery to some extent as well. But it's this kind of British attitude that people talk about, and you think, that doesn't maybe exist like it used to. But there is a camaraderie still in football fans. You do get that West Ham family feel sometimes. It's not always there like it used to be. Maybe not always there like you felt as a youngster, maybe. But I would guess it's a moment like that where you go, actually, I can rely on people I don't know who've decided they're my mate because I'm in a West Ham shirt.
Yeah. I also got to thoroughly enjoy singing with several thousand other West Ham fans, "We Can See You Sneaking Out," which is one of my favourite chants.
Yes.
It's one of my favourites. Emptied.
That totally empty.
I mean, I think there's more West Ham fans left at the moment than there are Villa fans. This is blue seats. If they just give it up, I mean, it must have been depressing, which gets us back into the actual football part, because I don't think I've ever seen an incident where I've gone, well, those two should both be sent off.
Yeah. I mean, from the stand, immediately, I mean, before even the play continued, when the Hawes challenge happened, I just immediately shouted, red card, straight away. It's like, how can he not be sent off for this? And I didn't see a replay until I got all the way home. And then when I saw a replay, I was like, how have they reviewed that and not sent him off? I remember Souček getting sent off against Fulham for grazing Mitrovic accidentally with his elbow. That was an intentional forearm/elbow smash to the jaw that could have seriously injured Pablo. And it was totally intentional. When you see it at full speed, you see, oh, I'm not going to win the ball. I'm going to.
His arm follows the man.
Yeah.
He's on. I mean, it made me really angry because I've seen. I mean, in the Sky studio afterwards, go, it's not a red card. He's not through and goal. And Gary Lineker was on Twitter saying that's going away from goal. I don't know what away from goal means to people, but he touched the ball in a straight line. He was going into the box. If he hadn't been fouled, he just takes a touch and moves towards goal. The word opportunity is very important in that rule as well, because it's a goal scoring opportunity. It doesn't mean a goal scoring tap in. It means he has an opportunity to score. He was behind the defender and threw a goal. What's an opportunity if not that? I mean, I was outraged. I was so angry, Callum.
Briefly on that, just on the rule, all the talk of the angle of where the ball's going is immaterial. It's a last man dog zone. It doesn't matter. He's the last man, and it's a goal-scoring opportunity, and the ball is going towards goal. Unless you're like you say, at the corner flag, it doesn't matter. Dean Smith said in his post-match interview, Ashley Young's getting there on the cover.
Oh God, don't give me started. Ashley Young in his prime is not getting there. He's 10 meters behind the ball. Ashley Young's 37 million years old now. And let get back on Dean Smith, playing in centre midfield for a long time. A man who isn't good enough to play on the wing anymore, so he's a fullback. Just chuck him centre mid. No, Dean, that's maybe why your team lost, because you've stuck with that one, pal. I thought they were a state, and I thought really the only thing they did to us was disrupt us by being so kind of rudimentary. And eventually, the numbers paid off, and you could say it flattered us a little bit, but I don't think it did. I think we eventually took advantage of time, space, and an extra man. And that fourth goal was one of my favourite, probably my favourite goal of the season.
Well, the fourth goal was excellent. The fourth goal was absolutely brilliant. It was everything you want to see Antonio doing. When he's come out and said he wants this 20-goal season, it was everything you want to see him doing. He could have shot himself, but the role in the first place is absolutely outstanding. He sees Hawes coming and manages to spin and open all that space up on the inside. And then the slide pass is perfect. And then Lanzini, for me, Lanzini's on the charge for a first-team spot at the moment. Every time he comes on, he's been brilliant.
I'd say that's when one benefit of these European games is you're getting the chance for these players to play games and be on foot. When he's shown in those European games, maybe people have forgotten about him. The boy doesn't lose the ball.
No. And his intensity as well.
Yeah.
His pressing's brilliant. I think is really, really important, especially like we've mentioned before with Antonio towards the end of the game sort of chills out a bit and doesn't press as much, just I presume to preserve and try and avoid any potential injury and stuff, and having players like Lanzini to bring on, or Benrahma if he doesn't start the game, who can lead that press is really important, and I think Lanzini has shown that.
That is where I'd give Benrahma some credit yesterday. He didn't do a lot great on the ball. He got the assist, which was from good running aside. But he was, in the first half especially, when we seemed to go a bit wayward, he was flying forward to make sure he presses. And he's still, he gets a lot of criticism, and some of it's fair, some of it isn't. But I do think people forget that he does that stuff, and he didn't do it when he started.
On the three of them, the three creative players in that game, Benrahma, Lanzini and Fornals, Benrahma pressed excellently and actually looked more comfortable from the left wing. I thought it was really interesting. He looked quite a lot more comfortable just in everything he was doing from the left wing. And actually you see, if you're going to compare him as a 10 to Lanzini as a 10, he does press really well from the 10 position. Lanzini also does that. But Benrahma's movements from central areas are often quite fixed and practiced. You can often see, I've spoken a lot about how his movement has improved, but you can see how coached it is. That he's making movements that he's learned how to do, but it's very sort of sees the space, knows what he has to do, and then makes a very fixed run. What you get with Lanzini is just this wonderful perception of space. His rotations are on a level that none of the forward players can do. The way he can see the game around him with his back to goal and understand when to filter out to the left side and let Fornals come into the centre, when to drop deep and let Rice go beyond or Souček go beyond. It's all very, very fluid. There's nothing fixed or really coached about it. It's just that perfect awareness of how to play that role. And the thing that he's lacked for a really long time is fitness and how to adapt his game to not being able to have the same burst of speed across 10 yards, not being able to dart away as the first man on a counter attack. For me, the bits we've seen of Lanzini this season, not every game. I mean, in the first Europa League performance against Zagreb, he was really poor and got hooked about 50 minutes in after he looked like he was going to get sent off with a few like really rash challenges. But since then, what we've started to see, and really definitely in the last week started to see, is that adaptation to understanding, okay, I'm a little bit less fit, but I can be really impactful playing a different kind of role from the 10 position. And he seems to be doing that excellently now.
What he can do that Benrahma can't do is he can go in a game, I need to play deeper. He can play a bit more of an 8. Benrahma doesn't really play an 8. Lanzini has become, and we saw it in that Burnley game last year where he suddenly was part of a midfield too. He can now do that. He's lost a little bit of dynamism, and he was never Payet. I mean, in that Payet year, he was always he came in and then gave on. And it's started to, we will lose a little bit of dynamism, undoubtedly. And you look at Liverpool and it'll be interesting whether Moyes goes, I want to keep possession, I need that discipline, or I need that burst of pace that Benrahma's got to break away. It's an interesting balance, but he's certainly, whereas I think Vlasic would have been the one at the start of the season, people were expecting to put the pressure on him. It's arguably Lanzini now.
Well, the three of them have different limitations. And I think the key thing is for Moyes to understand which game suits which one the best. With Benrahma, you get more fixed movements, but you get the advantage of his pace and his instinctive kind of dribbling ability. With Fornals, you get much better passing. Usually wasn't perfectly accurate against Villa. It was one of his weaker performances, but you get much better accuracy in possession usually with Fornals. The issue that Fornals gives you is if you've got a 6 or an 8 in the opposition team that likes to dribble, Fornals gets dribbled past all the time. I mean, he's got the worst stats in the league because he presses so much. The problem is that sometimes when he presses, he doesn't make a foul and he just lets someone run past him, which is not a huge problem from the left, is a huge problem when he's playing 10. And Lanzini, you lose some pace, but you get more control. So it's understanding which team against which opposition do you want to play which of those players, and there are different teams that will be suited, or they will be suited to playing against.
It's great to be able to say that we have all those options. Like, how often have we been able to say that as West Ham fans? Like, the squad, as I don't know, as small as it is, I guess it is a small squad compared to squads across the league, but it's diverse. I think everyone has a role to play. Everyone can cover a few positions, but they all bring their own thing to the party as well. Like and like you say, I think we've started to see Moyes sort of not learning, because I think he has always been tactically like astute, but has had moments where it's been questionable, and he hadn't perhaps used the squad to the best of its ability in the right moments. But now it seems as though his adaptations are much more effective and thought out, and it's great to have those options. There's no players who you think are like, oh, they're kind of a bit part, or like just a bit of a hanger on, like they're kind of just lingering around the squad. Like, everyone has and can come in on their day and do a job. I guess the only one for me that I'd probably say is Yarmolenko, but even him, we've managed to get a tune out of him ish. Like, he's still not great, but Moyes has found a way to make him purposeful and like get him to do a job. It's just his wage that then makes you think, well, okay, great, we've got him doing a job, but on 115 grand a week, can you afford to pay someone that's just doing a job that much money? Which is no. But
I think the key thing is he's able to be, I mean, he was criticized a lot for his lack of proactive decision making and substitutions, etc. beforehand, and I think that maybe wasn't a limitation of Moyes. I just think he wasn't necessarily super confident in these players, and now that cast of players that aren't necessarily in the first 11 have really seemed to have earned that trust off Moyes. So Moyes can, in a game like today, where we're losing a little bit of control against 10 men, go, on you go, Lanzini, and suddenly we have total control of the game back. Like it was a proactive change, and it totally changed the game when Lanzini came on.
Yeah, and it's using the squad. Before we move on, we should move on. Jarrod, we've highlighted Rice and Johnson. I think Bowen was the other star performer and deserves something there. I mean, he looked more dangerous. He still does his work. I mean, I love watching him do his work. He does so much running.
Yeah.
And he's not had, I don't think he's kind of been on and off. He wouldn't be dropped. He's because he's got a quite unique, almost a unique way about him compared to those three we've talked about who do have kind of similarities. He does have he's not maybe as, I don't know. There's something English about him, is what I'm thinking in my head. And it sounds ridiculous to say it. But there's that kind of cultural smart player about the other ones. He's got much more hustle bustle about him at times.
Mm-hmm.
But he's also he's looking like he's improving as a goal scorer, which may be just confidence. I don't know. He scored a lot for Hull, Cal, but he looks dangerous at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. I think he has. Yeah, he's always looked as though he has the goals in him. I think often you don't score every shot you take, it's just how it is. And I think it's just been almost an unfortunate run for him. Like, he was still getting in these positions. He was creating chances and he was just not scoring them. And like we mentioned on the last pod, it's unfortunate that we've come up against a run of informed keepers, basically, who have been saving more shots than would have been expected.
He's really borne the brunt of that. It's been his shots.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's
that's
funny
it. And
that it worked. The opposite for us yesterday was, I'm pretty sure Martinez will be disappointed with those first two goals. Maybe even the third. I'll give him off for the fourth, and it worked out one day.
Yeah, and I think now it's like we said about the numbers sort of balancing themselves out across the course of the season. We mentioned that last week, and that goes for the team as well as the individual. And I think, like Jack's rightly pointed out, Bowen has just unfortunately been the one whose shots have been prevented, and the other ones have been the goals that have gone in. They just haven't come from him. And I think now that you're sort of seeing that start to level out, and hopefully he'll start to clock up some real goals, because he could have had like 5 or 6 this season easily already. Like, it's just been unfortunate. Like, and even yesterday, when Matty Cash did that double clearance off the line, it's like that's the sort of stuff that he's coming up against, and it's just on any other day or any other player that goes in, and it's a not easy opportunity, but like, you don't expect something like that to happen, like to get up and head it off the line after just clearing it off the line. Like, it's just unfortunate. And eventually, I think kind of like when we mentioned about the expected assist thing the other day, that's a metric that takes out these sort of it's like, it doesn't account for other factors and stuff. It's a better read. And it's similar to Bowen. It's like, metrics, great, I'm a sucker for metrics, everybody knows that, but there's only so much they can tell you. And I think you only have to watch Bowen to go, oh, okay, he definitely can score goals. Like, he's only got like however many goals this season. That's not, or it might not look great, but you watch him every game and it's like, okay, he's not got the goals, but there's a player there that can get 10, 15 goals contributions at least a season. I think it's all there.
But if you look, I mean, with Bowen, just on some specifics of exactly what you're talking about, you think against Leeds, he had that incredible little dribble inside, and then the finish was a great save from Meslier. I can think Everton, he had a wonderful shot on the spin, which Pickford did amazingly to tip over the bar. And then against Villa, you have the Matty Cash double clearance off not quite off the line, but clearance as the last man. Martinez is out of the game on both those shots. And then for Fornals's goal, I know you said Martinez might be disappointed with himself. I thought that was an outstanding save. It's a great run, a fantastic cross shot. And Martinez manages to get a fingertip on it that's going to send it wide, and Fornals manages to get in at the back stick to get it in really easily. His pressing was brilliant. Defensively, faultless performance from Bowen. Really easily could have had a hat-trick. Really easily could have had a hat-trick.
I also want to give Fornals a little bit of credit. I thought he took that really well. It made what was actually quite an awkward chance into something that looked really easy. But then I just love Pablo.
Terrible knee slide though. It was a terrible knee slide. That's always one of my favourite things is when someone goes to the knee slide with such confidence and just bounces off the earth. It's like it's so fun. And then he looked up at Rice and he was just like, "You idiot."
Well, it was at least better than that tackle that John McGinn tried to get him sent off for, which was they collided knee to knee. It was quite weird. I mean, it was never a red card. It was awful. It was just too quite. I mean,
he's such a horrible little shit ass, that John McGinn. I actually hate him.
A little rat face, little twat. I mean, I got so angry. It
was a great moment when Bowen pushed him over.
When Bowen didn't push him hard. He just I mean, he didn't roll like Nakamba did. Nakamba, who kind of
Nakamba's rolls were unreal.
It was like a year 7 at a school disco doing the caterpillar or the worm or something. It was ridiculous. It was Scotty Too Hotty for those old enough for that reference. I mean, old enough but not too old, and also to have had a life in their teens. Yeah, I mean, we should probably move on, I suppose, to another big performance, which was, I suppose, the somewhat second string beating 5 years, can't lose a tie, the kings of the Carabao, Manchester City.
Strong lineup as well. It was a strong, wasn't it? I mean, we on the last pod were like, oh, they're going to play their kids, and they're going to play their kids. And like, yes, okay, they had one kid up front. They also had De Bruyne, Sterling, Mahrez.
Yeah. I suppose, in a way, their best player ended up being Cole Palmer, I think, for a little bit of that. He threatened. But I guess you're looking for Areolas. He's the one who stood out for me because there was a lot of people. There was a lot of people who played really well in that game. There were, and I think they were different. But he needed a performance, and he needed to do something to show that he was still putting that pressure on. And that was an 8, 9 out of 10 performance, Jack.
Well, it's where you see the best of Areola. We've known him to be an outstanding shot stopper from what he did at Fulham from last season, and some of the saves he made in that game. The save from John Stones is just unbelievable. It's just an absolutely brilliant save. And yeah, if there's a game for him to step up in, and we talked about it, I think, in the last pod about how a game against a team that are going to take loads of shots, there's no way they weren't, even if they were going to play their kids, was going to be a fantastic chance for him to showcase his talent. And he absolutely did that. Some really fantastic reflex saves. I know, just a hero really throughout the 90 minutes, and then didn't actually need to save a penalty.
No, I think he was getting to Foden's at least. So it's fine, doesn't matter. My favourite one is, I suppose, not a save. It's that one that dropped to Gundogan and he was off balance and he adjusted to get his foot, and I thought that
swept it away.
That's quick. I don't think Fab still has that bit of speed in him.
No,
and I don't think he does. And I thought that was the one that went for. And also, there's concentration. He was watching, and we did doubt his concentration or whatever. And it's slightly easier when you know you're going to be pummeled with shots, but he was aware, and he showed the reflex to do it as well. And it was actually, considering we had a rotated defence as well, it's another example of these games actually, rather than being a hindrance because of tiredness, probably being really, really good for us. Because I thought, I think you'd have said you preferred Dawson to Diop. I thought Diop was brilliant. I suppose I've let you wax lyrical over Alphonso Areola. So Craig Dawson, Jack.
I love this man. I love this man. I just cannot get enough of Craig. I both were brilliant. Both Dawson and Diop were brilliant. What I loved about this, and this is a bit gimmicky, but what I loved about the City game with Dawson is we constantly talk about this guy's passing. I haven't seen the numbers. I promise you he had lower pass success than this Diop. That's just almost guaranteed. But I think I noted 4 passes that set attackers away for Dawson in the first half alone, in the first 45 minutes alone against Man City. I don't know what's going on at West Ham now, and we're talking about players developing in different positions and learning different skills. Craig Dawson learning how to play line-breaking passes out of defence is not something I ever thought I would be saying.
That's not an Everton Moyes thing he's learned. Something that showed that Moyes has progressed. I'm pretty sure he wasn't teaching the Phil Jagielka. I think it was Phil Jagielka. How to bend one round the corner and get Yakubu off. I mean, it was certainly something new. I mean, I really appreciate that the fact that those two have had doubts over them as well. I mean, Dawson has been replaced. That's not always easy. And he was getting criticism. He started the season slightly roughly as well. He's come into those games and actually even coming on against Everton, I thought he looked good. He looked back to the player that shocked everyone last year that people didn't want to buy, who was suddenly amazing. And Diop has looked very unlike what he was kind of considered as well. I would give those two immense credit for kind of reacting to the rotation and actually showing that it's good for them. And again, it kind of proves the theory that more football can be better for footballers. I know it's weird. It even strikes a Noble, who's barely played this season. And I will give Souček a lot of credit here because I thought Souček really played his game knowing he was next to Mark Noble.
Yeah.
But I mean, his passing was pretty good. He picked people out. What I want to highlight is the drive into the area where he faked to go one way, did the big touch and sprinted through as if he was A, ever fast, which even when he was in his 20s was, and B, like a man in his 20s. I don't know what's happening at the club, but Mark Noble sprinting on the dribble against Man City to break through the lines. I mean, that says a lot to me.
Mark Noble having an excellent midfield performance against Fernandinho, Kevin De Bruyne, and Ilkay Gundogan, right? What is going on? What is happening here?
It's a lot about mentality of a football club. That the happier you are, I guess, and the more confident you are, the better you play. I won't touch too much on Mark because I'm pretty sure at one point this season we're going to have an emotional Mark Noble podcast anyway, where I cry and get my arm tattoo out. But Nikola Vlasic. The two that I thought, whilst not amazing, probably his most promising, his best performance so far.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, he was so much more involved for a start. I think one of the problem, well, not problems, but one of the things we've raised previously is that he's kind of just looked a bit like a passenger, like he's just not in the game. Like we played almost around him, and I think this game we played through him a lot, which is great. And like we've said, we've known that the quality is there because we've been aware of him before he arrived here, and he's proven that elsewhere. But what we've said is that he needed to be more involved to kind of get into that groove, and I think we saw that against City. And I thought it was a bit harsh to hook him off, to be honest. I think, I mean, you can't question it in the end because we won the game, albeit on penalties, and the decisions to bring on the three starting attackers, completely changed the dynamic of the game. I thought like the energy that arrived on the pitch was just like, it was almost cinematic. Like you saw the three of them strip after, you were like, yes, here we go. Right,
we're going for it.
This is the proactive Moyes that everyone's been missing, and that's about as proactive as you can get. As much as I did feel like it was a bit harsh on Vlasic, but yeah, I was really impressed with what I saw, and hopefully that's a sign of things to come. He's found his groove, and hopefully he'll be given more time. And like we said, we're anticipating him featuring a lot more when Benrahma disappears for however many weeks it is that he'll be away, probably a while, because I imagine Algeria will be aiming to win the AFCON. So he'll probably be involved for a lengthy period of time. But seeing these players come in and make these cameos makes me less fearful of his absence, to be honest. Like we've seen Vlasic perform well now in a shirt. We've talked about Lanzini coming in and playing a role again. And as much as Benrahma is great, and he's obviously been really important this season and hit the ground running really quickly at the start. I mean, we'll miss him, but I'm not worried about him going, I don't think. I mean, worried in the sense that it'd be nice to have him, of course, but I don't think, oh wow, we're screwed when Benrahma goes. Whereas in previous seasons, I might have looked at the squad and gone, who the hell fills that role? Now it's like, oh, okay, he goes, but Fornals, Vlasic, Lanzini are all about and can fill that gap pretty confidently, to be honest.
Yeah, and if you spend 5 minutes on West Ham Twitter, Lingard's coming back in January anyway. So I mean, what are we worried about?
Exactly.
The only issue now is we might be facing a Spurs that have Conte in the next round, which is probably a different proposition to the ghost of Harry Kane and Nuno that we had before. Yeah. You were confident we'd beat City, Jack. Are you confident we'll go to Spurs and win?
Well, we got an excellent record against them in the League Cup. We beat them in the quarterfinal at White Hart Lane. Maiga scored that 86th minute header after Jarvis scored. Right, we won that game with an absolutely terrible team. And then again at Wembley, right? We were 2-0 down and we won that game 3-2. Andre Ayew brace.
We are actually on quite a good run against Spurs.
We're on a great run against them in the League Cup. So yeah, I do fancy us.
Honestly, I think you kind of have to. Like this, like them under Conte is a different proposition altogether, of course. But like we've just beaten Pep's City, and it wasn't a weak City. Yeah. So I think you've got to fancy yourself against anyone. Like we've shown that we can go toe to toe with the big boys. So to turn up and think anything other than we can win this, and the whole thing is, I don't know. You're not going to win a game if you don't think you're going to win it.
I just want to say thank you for that perfect setup, because we've shown we could go against anyone and play against the big boys. So Liverpool.
You used to work on radio, Chris.
I know. I've listened to some people do some talking. I didn't have to do that time. Cal set it up for me. I mean, Liverpool. If any team I did fear, I think it would be Liverpool. As a team we've not looked great against. But a team, as pointed out by my least favourite pundit, Jamie Redknapp, we didn't have a go at last year when we actually probably could have, and when they were in their weaker spell. And we are a different team this year. This year we do look like we will probably, if not have a go, we will certainly back ourselves to be more dangerous. Where do you see us being, our weaknesses being exploited in this, Jack? Or, I mean, certainly with Salah and Liverpool generally, but...
Well, it's a tough game. It's a really tough game. My big question is, I don't actually know. I haven't looked at this, but whether Fabinho will be back or whether Henderson is expected to continue as the number 6. Because if Henderson does continue as the number 6, he has a real tendency to jump out all the time and has kind of lacks positional discipline in that role, which Brighton exploited really well by playing Trossard as a false 9 who just dropped into the space that he's constantly leaving behind because he loves pressing. So he's always charging up to press something, but it leaves this massive amount of space in that area.
Bodes well for us.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, is we've just had a chat about our 3 midfielders who all have different skill sets in dominating that area of the pitch. So, you know, if they're having one area that's a real problem for them at the moment, it's the number 6 area. And if we're having one area where we're performing exceptionally well at the moment, it's probably that area. So, or have lots of different skills that of players that are all performing quite well. So, although obviously I've been super, super confident when you come to the prediction section of all the other pods we've done so far, I'm not going to say, you know, I fully expect us to beat them. It's a real tough test, but there is that one weakness. And if we can exploit it in the same way that Brighton did, then yeah, I'd say we've got a chance.
What do you think, Cal?
Yeah, I agree. I think that there's not many weaknesses in that side, but there are some. And we've seen, I think I imagine Moyes will probably have watched or will watch that Liverpool Brighton game, as he watches everything apparently, and he's just doing his due diligence really to watch that. And I think he'll watch that and look at it and go, oh, okay, we could, if they've managed to do that, then why can't we? Like, I think more than most teams in the Prem, we're probably best suited to exploit that sort of weakness, because we're probably one of, if not the most dangerous teams on the counter, and exploiting those areas of the pitch. We've proven that so far this season and the end of last season, and we're only getting better at it. I think Villa was the perfect example of it wasn't our best performance. We can play better, but one thing we was absolutely clinical, and that Bowen marauding run down on the break that led to the goals was a prime example of that. If we can catch them out of position, which I think we can, because they're a team that play with so much attacking intent that so often their fullbacks are basically on the byline because they're the main attacking outlets, and they play such a dangerously high line that if we can just progress that ball out on the counter quickly, then I think the holes are there which to be run into, definitely. But the flip side of that is that they play this dangerously high line and are so attacking oriented, and they're so bloody good at it. Like they're so in form. Like I think it's difficult. I don't think any team would really, or any fan of any club would go into a game against Liverpool at the minute and think, yeah, we can do them. Like, it's just, they're just a different beast at the minute. Like, I guess the only one positive is probably that they play Atletico a few days before, and they're going to probably field a strong team for that, or as strong a field as they can, because they've got a few injuries at the minute, and they're likely to be knackered because Atletico don't let you rest. Really, they're one thing you can guarantee from a Simeone team is that you're going to come out of it absolutely shagged, because he's going to either run you all over the pitch or brutalize your body by just getting the likes of Hermoso and stuff to just kick 7 shades of shit out of you like for 90 minutes. So maybe
it was going, but I still laugh.
So yeah, maybe they'll be carrying a few cuts and bruises from that, and will be fatigued, and who knows. Like, I don't want to wish injury on anyone, and I think from a neutral perspective, watching Salah this year has been absolutely brilliant, and the form he's displaying is great for the league, and just to watch and admire as a fan of football. But were he to be missing, and that maybe would be good.
I certainly think the biggest worry maybe that the arguably the best player in the world right now is going to be down playing on the right against maybe our weakest defensive point, which is a worry.
Oh, no, he's doing really well at the moment. I know we generally consider him to be our weakest defensive point, but he's really stepped up in recent weeks. I would usually jump on board with that, but the last 2 months of Cresswell form has been outstanding. And then in the positive column is more the other team that I've seen really get under their skin this season, or that I remember really seeing get under their skin this season, is Brentford. And if we were talking about the one weakness they had at 6, the other weakness they've been shown to have numerous times really, and Brentford exploited it wonderfully, is balls to the back post, overloading the back post against Trent. They tend to get quite narrow, and then that leaves Trent with too much to deal with. And Salah doesn't get back, and Salah's not very good in the air anyway. So committing 2-3 numbers to that area with sort of looping balls across to the back stick has worked and been quite effective against them for a number of teams, most notably Brentford this season. And
do you think
we've got the players? Sorry, we've got the players to exploit that weakness at number 6, but we've also got the players to exploit that weakness at fullback.
Do you think maybe we see Soufal come back in for this one on account of his delivery?
See, this is the thing that's quite hard about this game, is that Ben Johnson is undroppable because of how well he's playing, but Soufal suits this game so well. That's what I mean. If we're talking about overloading that back post, there's probably no better crosser in the team than Soufal, especially to that area. So
he does float one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if Soufal was to return to the team, and I wouldn't be shocked if that caused a bit of a fury on Twitter or whatever.
And I think, to be honest, I think as much of a fury as it might cause, I think if you're Ben Johnson and Moyes gives that rationale for the decision, I don't think you can really argue with it, because I think one thing Johnson, as a footballer, would probably see is that, Soufal is ridiculously good. And if you explain it tactically, saying, right, this is how we're going to set up today, we're going to try and overload that back post, we need a lot of crosses going in there from your side, I don't think you can really disagree with that. Like, Soufal's proven that he's got the best delivery in the team. I guess maybe Cresswell, but at least from like live play, Soufal's crossing is better. And he already has that sort of connection with Souček, who I'm assuming will be using to attack that back post. That sort of link up, that sort of delivery. And again, I guess it's not like we're going to have a defensive. Well, to be fair, Johnson's defensive output has been ridiculously good, but it's not like we're going to lose that much defensively with Soufal, because he is a workhorse and he is good at defending, and he's coming up against a Mane who seems to have kicked on a bit and found some form again after a fairly dryish spell by his standards. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see him come back in, and I maybe would put Souček in your fantasy teams if you're going to have a West Ham player.
I do suspect Fornals will be back on their left for this, because the only thing you want is someone who's going to make sure they're tracking Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Yes, definitely.
Ben Rama has some qualities, obviously, but maybe discipline isn't one. We do have a game in the week. I suppose we've now, if you want to do a picture of some West Ham confidence, is the fact that we've decided we don't need to talk that much about Genk.
Yeah.
I mean, almost the fact that we're not going to have a big conversation about it is the talking point in that respect. Is we trust the secondish string in the rotation. We know we're dealing with it quite good, and we also probably don't think they're that good.
No. Well, I think, we totally trust the second string of players of the B team. The rotated defence have proven themselves to be excellent time and time again. And frankly, we've taken so much pressure off ourselves with 3 wins in the first 3 games that a draw away at Genk is a great result. So there's very little pressure on this game. It's a chance, maybe even. I mean, it's probably the first chance he's had to say you could rest Cresswell and make sure he's fresh to play against Salah, and give Masuaku a run out at left back even.
I hope so. Actually, yeah. We've got. I mean, the importance. If we win this, we're done basically.
Yeah.
And which would be lovely to have those 2 games to really, really rest some players. I guess we should wrap up there then, really, gentlemen. Before I go, first I want to thank Paul Walker for listening to what he says is his 2nd ever podcast. I mean, those of you who read a lot from us, these will well know Paul, excellent writer, long-time journalist. He also gave me a brilliant stat. When Leicester won the title, they had 19 points from their first 10 games. We were on 20. I mean, granted, there's a few teams above us, but we're making good progress. And I want to thank Joshua, and I'm going to go for Schroer, and I'm sorry, Josh, or Joshua if it's not, but who's sent feedback in that was, I won't read it now, but it was lovely. It was really, really, really lovely and really nice. And we all appreciate it. I said it on to make sure the boys read it because, sometimes on a Monday night or a Tuesday morning, you need a little bit of an ego boost, and why not? And until then, that's another one wrapped up. Hopefully we'll come back with some good news next week and before an international break, so we can have a little bit of change of tone. We're not going to be doing, maybe we'll have some games to analyse, but we won't have so much to look forward to. So that gives Calamus in particular, who's got a big list of players I can see to my left, a time to shine as well. But until then, thank you for listening and goodbye.
Right, so we're here in the offices of a Late Late Show with the host of a Late Late Show, James Corden.
Hi.
Big West Ham fan.
Yes. And big knees up Mother Brown man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm regularly on the general discussion page. There's always someone who's got some information, so I love it. Yeah. It's great. Yes, it's excitement surrounded by imminent disappointment. That's what it mostly is.
Get on the forum at kumb.com. Come on, you irons.